Hey, welcome everybody. This is another video in our conversation series. We're discussing the changing roles of parents and teachers and ultimately students during online learning as we've shifted to online learning. Today, we have a group of CIS teachers representing kindergarten to grade 5. Hi everybody, welcome and thank you for participating with us today. We really just want to hear about what it's been like in the first couple of weeks of online teaching. And we'll start by maybe introducing ourselves. And the question that we would have for you is, how are you doing in general with all that is happening as you're shifting your role and your teaching role and shifting to adapt to COVID-19, this real situation on the planet and on Cayman Islands right now? Nadine.
Thank you, Martin. So Nadine, I am currently a kindergarten teacher. And to answer your question, I think for me, it's been about remaining calm and positive and staying informed. So making sure that I'm finding reliable sources of information. I'm using the government sites quite a bit. And making sure that I know really what's happening. I'm also staying connected to my family. My parents have recently returned from Florida, so they're quarantined, and just making sure that they've got everything that they need and that they're safe. Reaching out to friends around the world. I was working in Asia for 13 years, and my colleagues there have been going through this for much longer than I have. So just getting some of their wisdom and staying connected with people around me that may have a bit more knowledge than I do at the minute.
And you're doing well right now? Your family, everybody feels okay?
Everybody's okay.
Good. Brad, you're next on my screen. How are you, Brad? Oh, let me unmute you. Hang on a sec. There you go. I got you. Now
I'm Brad Teese. You can hear me? All right. I'm Brad Teese. I teach 5th grade. I think I'm just finally starting to get my legs, really. Trying to figure out a routine that works day in and day out. It's been sort of a trial and error. Physically trying to find a time to exercise and be outside in a way that I'm not going to be followed by a helicopter. And also staying informed. I think listening to the premiere and those updates for me has been, I'm really proud of Cayman and the way that they've handled the whole experience. I feel like we're better informed than a lot of my own family members feel like they are in the US and some of my friends in other countries. So staying abreast of what's going on in Cayman and on Cayman. And then the digital aspect of adjusting to life in home. And I think it's a physical adjustment more than anything else for me. The idea of sitting as much as I sit, reminding myself to get up and do something so that my muscles don't become a giant knot, which is, even my glasses are heavy lately. I'm not used to wearing my reading glasses all day. So I think we're doing pretty well. The class that I teach is finally starting to find their legs. And so every day gets a little bit better.
Great, thanks. Paola. Hang on, let me unmute you.
I'm sorry. Okay. So hi, I'm Paola. I teach 5th grade. We're doing well. We are made adjustments to life in Cayman and under these conditions. I'm checking in at local and international news, reading, being informed, keeping my family safe, connecting with my family in Ecuador as well. Everyone seems to be doing fine. We're just overall concerned with everything that's going on and being as optimistic as we possibly can. Staying together, getting some exercise, cooking together, having meals together, even playing some games. So we've been trying to make ends meet here with everything that's going on, and I think we're doing a really good job.
Very good. Thank you. Luke.
Yeah, pretty much what everyone else is saying. We're staying, inside for most of the day now. That's been the biggest transition for me. But we're still able to connect with the friends and family overseas, and everybody's doing okay right now. Just a weird time for everybody, so working it out.
And you teach grade 3.
Yep.
And finally, Philippa.
Yeah, my name's Philippa. I teach first grade at CIS, and yeah, I think we're doing pretty well as a family on the whole. We've definitely had some down days, or different people have had down days, mostly me, I think. But otherwise, you know, we're just trying to be thankful for what we've got, really. Thankful we live in the Cayman Islands, and it doesn't matter that I have no hot water and haven't had for 2 weeks, and probably now won't have for maybe another 6. Thankful that we can go outside and swim in the ocean and you know, do things together as a family too. I think that's been one interesting thing I've noticed with my younger students as well as my younger child, is that they're actually kind of excited. We can play family games, we can do this, we can stay home, you know, I like being with my family. So yeah, just trying to take each day that comes and just be thankful for what we can.
And stuffed animal show and tell makes you happy too, I found out this morning on Seesaw. Some good pictures.
Did you see that?
With their stuffed animal.
Yes, I had a bit of an off day this morning and I missed speaking to my kids, so I asked them to share their favorite stuffy with me, and it really did lift my spirit, so it was great. But I thought actually it was twofold why I did that. Is one, because I was feeling a bit down, but two, I thought we talk a lot about connections with our students and how they need to see us, and you know, but I think part of that connection is knowing that we're human too, and that we have bad days and that things are tough for us as well. So I thought it was, you know, I mean, it wasn't deliberate, but it kind of ended up being pretty good, I think, for everyone.
It was good, yeah. And Leanne's here too. Leanne is helping me with the meeting and the conversation. How are you, Leanne?
I am very well. I am, like everyone else, balancing many worlds all under one roof, trying to be a mom and a teacher to my own kid and an assistant principal, and like everyone else, the usual responsibilities are still here, combined with all the others. So in our family, we have one teenager who is very excited about online learning and is having a wonderful time. And we have one grade 3 student who has struggled with a feeling of kind of angst that he couldn't describe. And although that is improving day by day as he has more family time, he definitely misses the routine of school and friends. And so I think, like most parents, I'm finding that time consuming to deal with as well.
I can identify with that angst. I was having a little bit of that today too. I miss being at school. Sure. Something we're all going through. Mm-hmm. Well, as we continue on with after the introductions with our first question, I think our first question, Leanne, is?
And so I was wanting to talk a little bit about shifting roles for all of us. That's something that I'm, struggling with myself in terms of trying to combine roles, but also just the nature of our work has changed as teachers. Can you guys share your experience of shifting instruction online and how you feel that has affected or changed your role as a teacher? And maybe this time we could start with Luke. Can you do the mics for me, Martin? I don't have
Sure. I think really the biggest part of it is that we're kind of like presenters of information, and then like we give feedback. The whole middle part, the learning part, and the practice is all independent for the kids now. So for me, the shift has been just to be as clear and organized and concise as I can be, trying to answer every single potential question when I'm designing these lessons. And it's just harder to answer questions from the kids and to give feedback immediately as they're working. So that's been the biggest shift for me.
For sure. I mean, the technology puts, it connects us, but it also puts a barrier in between us. And I think one of the things that I've struggled with when I've connected with kids is not having those kind of cues that a child's learning or is understanding what I'm putting out there as easily. And you can't read someone's face as easily online. You don't have the kids in front of you to guide them along. You're sort of dependent on someone else to do that part for you, which is tough. Thanks, Luke. I think that's really key. Philippa, you're next on my screen. You want to go next? Martin, can you do her mic? Yeah, there you go. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, everything that Lou said really in terms of having to change our role, I think becoming more concise and thinking about delivery a lot more, whereas, you know, I've been teaching the same grade for a lot of years. And so, yes, I'm always thinking about content and how to improve my lessons, but often the delivery part, maybe, you know, I'm just a bit more used to it. That kind of just, you know, happens. So having to be more purposeful with that. And I think for me, one of the things has been, whilst we have differentiated in some of our lessons, just knowing that I'm sort of we're pushing out in some ways the same things, and I don't have the same facility to differentiate, because sometimes differentiation is me, you know, like the way I help a student in the classroom. So when that's not there, that is a bit different. And I think, especially now that we're thinking about report cards, not being able to see just my students' sort of raw work, you know, like the writing I'm seeing is fabulous and it's so neat. And I know that the parents have had a lot to do with that, which is wonderful. But at the same time, like sometimes I wish, you know, or I don't wish it, but you know, that's one thing that I've had to adjust to, is just, I just see snapshots and I miss, you know, seeing that picture.
Yeah, there's a buffer in between. Yeah. Thanks, Philippa. Nadine, do you want to share? Martin, if you could switch the mics again for us. Is Nadine still there? Oh, there you are.
Yeah, I think for me, it's been the rapid pace of change that has been the biggest challenge. Just making sure that when I am putting something online, that it's purposeful and it's meaningful. And a bit like what Philippa was saying, you know, just not being able to differentiate when I know the needs of my students in my class. So it's very difficult to put something online that I know might be harder for some, easier for others. So just finding that just right balance and adjusting to that is probably the biggest hurdle. Although I think in some ways it's kind of forcing me to be more creative. So I think there's a bit of accountability there for me as well, and just you know, making sure that it might be an opportunity to change practices, right? Or to change my practice and be a little bit more creative and find out, you know, how I can deliver that best.
Yeah, that's a really interesting way to look at it, because, you know, pedagogy seems very different online. It is different online. It's not the same thing at all. And also, we're not doing distance learning the way it's been done before. We're doing kind of emergency online learning, which is different again. Yeah, good. That's an interesting point. Thanks for that. Brad, you're next on my screen. Are you ready to share?
Sure. Oh, I'm unmuted. Okay. It's a little bit like playing whack-a-mole. That's what I feel like. As soon as I figure out one thing, a new problem pops up. And so I'm continually trying to find ways to avoid that situation. And one of the ways, I think it might have been Luke that brought up the idea of connecting with kids, or that gap in between. It's finding tools that allow me to maybe comment on or reflect upon the work that I'm seeing in the process. And I've found a few things. Cammy's been a really good one for me to annotate things like that I've corrected, math testing, and I can leave comments. But then the new whack-a-mole becomes, are they reading? So then I create the assignment where you are required to reply to one of my comments. And now that's shifted more work on me, because now I'm checking to make sure who's addressed the comment and what are they reading. So I think the hard part, yes, it's balance, and yes, it's finding ways to get in there and comment in the middle on the stuff that's being done before it's the final product, which is the piece that's really missing for me as a teacher. I can always look at the finished product, but again, it's probably much better than what I've seen in the classroom, because they are getting one-on-one assistance that they didn't have with me. And then maybe the other side of this is finding ways to connect with them. After the first 4 or 5 days, I felt just, totally isolated from them. And one of the things that I went back to was read aloud. And it felt like a way that I force everybody. You can't miss 1 o'clock meeting. I read aloud, the whole class is there. And they comment on the things that I'm reading on a separate Padlet that we're doing on the side, looking for figurative language and stuff. But it's huge to me to do the morning meeting and the afternoon meeting, just to check in and have that silly time.
Mm-hmm. Those are the times when you would normally in your classroom connect with kids. So without those, you're missing the ballast of the day is missing. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Paola, what about you?
Am I unmuted? Oh, yes.
Yes, you are.
Thank you. I was going to say that one of the most important things is being organized and helping my students be organized with their work. That way they can submit work that has been requested in an organized fashion, and they can follow different patterns. And that has brought out in them a sense of responsibility, which is very valuable at their young age. I also think that throughout the day, you're troubleshooting different problems that may arise with emails, with an app that's not working, with a parent that's asking a question, with something that's unclear, or an activity that they don't want to do, or that they don't understand how to do it. So you're trying to fix problems here and there. I do think that creativity, differentiation, and hard work is a must now more than ever if we want our students to be successful. Just because we're trying to tackle a new type of learning, and it's different for us as well as for students. So it's important to dedicate that time to being more creative, to being innovative, and to use best practices to teach our students.
Thanks, Paola. That's a lot of what we're feeling too, in terms of what you guys have said about connections with kids, understanding from a distance what they're going through, and anticipating problems that we've never had before. You know, it's hard to anticipate problems in a situation you've never been in before. So that's quite interesting.
And hard to differentiate, like Paola was saying, when you're not seeing the process in the middle that the students are going through, like everyone else said. I thought that was a very interesting point. So we've talked with parents. Parents' role has definitely shifted. Teachers' role has shifted, and it looks a lot different. So that means what students are doing must be somewhat different. Have any of you noticed, perhaps, or do you have any comments on how a student's world have changed on us over these last few weeks with online learning? Brad, do you have any ideas for that?
At first, I was going to say that for most of them, it hasn't been as big a shift as I would have thought, just because we had been doing some online stuff in class. But then I'm reflecting on a particular student that has really struggled with this. And the piece that they've struggled with isn't what you'd expect. It's that independence that they haven't had to have in the classroom. The idea that there was always somebody sitting next to them that helped them with, hey, where are we supposed to be? What page are we on? And now that kid is forced to deal with me because there is nobody else to answer that question. And the terminology that we're using in the classroom is be a detective. Where do you find the answers to these questions? And the temptation as a teacher is just to say, oh, here's what you do. And that's not what I'm doing. I'm throwing the question back to him and saying, well, what did we do the last time we ran into a situation like this? So I think one of the bigger things here is that there's this unexpected push toward independence. The learned helplessness is getting kids nowhere, and it's kind of a nice natural consequence.
Yeah, thanks. Philippa, I'm going to jump to you because let me unmute your mic, because I feel like grade 1, it's lower grade than grade 5. So if they're struggling with independence in grade 5, they must be in grade 1 as well, right?
Yeah, that's a topic that's close to my heart on any day of the week. So the independence piece, because coming into first grade is a huge jump, especially from kindergarten with an assistant. But then it often I find is a jump for the parents to encourage that independence. And so I was a bit concerned when we moved to online learning that that was something that I did speak to my parents about beforehand, because you know, I feel like this is a time for them to be independent, and we did a lot of work in the class for them to learn how to do some of those things. I mean, obviously we didn't have time to do everything, but like posting to Seesaw in the last couple of days, I think similar to Brad, I tried to pretend I wasn't in the room, let them go for it, you know, by themselves. And I encourage parents to have the students explain to them rather than them take control of the situation. I wanted the students to go and look and then ask for help when they needed it. So yeah, I think that that's one thing that they definitely, looking at their videos, they've become a lot more independent at doing those. Before it was someone holding the video, doing it with them, or I was getting them from parents via maybe the inbox instead of the journal. Now the students are all doing those by themselves pretty much. And I was thinking that my answer to that question about how they're changing would be just asking them to be open-minded and flexible. You know, like, yes, it's going to look different, and yes, Miss Philippa might not be here, or, you know, Mum might be helping me with this, and they might have different expectations, but just trying to figure out. And today we had some good problem solving. You know, there was a question that asked them to use an analog clock, and several of the students replied with either a clock they made or a wristwatch, and said, you know, sorry, Miss Philippa, we don't have an analog clock, but we thought we could use this. And I was like, every single one was like, yeah, great problem solving. I love that you did that. So there's other learning going on other than just, you know, telling the time, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, and the language becomes so much more important, right? And the younger students don't quite have the language, but to be specific, just even to say analog clock, who along the process is going to pick up that would be so challenging, right? To get that one clear message over. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Nadine, have you had some of the same, I'm jumping a bit out of order, but have you had some of the same challenges with kindergarten students, of course?
Well, this is probably the biggest hurdle for kindergarten because, of course, in the classroom, I have an aide, so the students are used to having a lot of support in the classroom. And I think also for young students, it must be very odd to have their parents roles shift, right? They're not used to seeing their parents in that role. Yeah. And I am also a parent of a young student, so answering in that form, it's actually been quite nice because I can see my children in a different light as a parent. And that role, I think, has made me a little bit more sympathetic about how I am in the classroom and what my own children experiencing at home, and now seeing that dynamic from two perspectives is quite interesting. And I think that it's probably difficult for parents to be facilitators. They're not used to being in that role. Whereas even I am a facilitator by nature, by being a teacher, but it's still difficult to do that with my own children. So I think that has been definitely the biggest shift of role.
Very good. I had Paola, what about a shift in your students' role that you've seen?
Well, I've seen some positive things come out. I've seen how independent and organized they are. I see how they're trying to troubleshoot as they work throughout the day, how to help one another. They're emailing, they're chatting with among themselves, and they're problem solving together, not necessarily with me, but they are helping one another. And sometimes they're even dealing with emotional issues. So a student was probably a little sad yesterday, and another student gave him a quick joke, and we all laughed. We all had a good laugh. And so that was a happy moment. And so I think it's a process that students go through every day. And probably now more than ever, the role of a parent is now even more important, because they're not only, as Nadine said, not only a parent, but they're a facilitator as well. They're teaching their child. They're helping out their child more so than what they did before. So the parent-child relationship becomes richer in many degrees.
Mm-hmm. And the support, the emotional, social emotional support, we normally are there, but now the merging of those roles maybe makes that a little more challenging at times too, when we're trying to get through things, if that's what we're trying to do. Hopefully we're not trying just to get through things. Luke, how about you in the middle grades, grade 3?
In grade 3, I think the biggest shift for students is, just kind of echoing what everybody else said, that personal responsibility that they have now to get that work done. Fortunately, I think most of the kids in my class are able to work with a parent, but those of them who aren't are having trouble organizing some of these things and just keeping track of all the work that they have this day and this day. But I think that's probably where they're going to grow the most, is becoming a little more responsible on their own. I think another unintended consequence, or maybe not consequence, is just flexibility of time now. Whereas in school you have a set schedule at a set time, and now they're able to use their time how it works for them the best, instead of having to do math first and then you do reading after lunch, or however the routine was at school. you're able to kind of make that as they will, whatever works best for them.
Now we've kind of all touched on that, Leanne, but like, I wonder specifically, these are our student needs. What are the most important things parents and teachers are doing for students right now? As we kind of made this shift, we're into week 3, we're going into week 4. What do we have to be more purposeful about, and maybe even learn a little bit more how to do as parents and teachers for students? What supports do students need? My question.
Yeah, as I'm listening to all of the teachers speak today, I'm hearing that that idea of support is a real theme. First of all, because you can't give the kinds of support you're used to giving, you know, and kind of playing to your individual strengths in the classroom in front of kids. And also that different types of support are now required. So I'm interested, now that you've had a couple of weeks doing things this way, what types of supports do students need to be successful in online learning? And how are they different from the types of support, or the same as the support you had to provide in the classroom? Maybe Paola can start this time.
Hold on one sec, Paola, sorry. Go for it.
Sorry, I can't drive.
Go for it.
I was going to say that one of the most important tools that has been extremely helpful is the fact that all our students have technology. And without that technology, that factor in their education would be a lot harder. Mm-hmm. They have to have some sort of supplies with them, a parent support. And I strongly believe a balance between what is academic and that free time. So there isn't too much academic and there isn't too much free time, but there's a balance in between the two, as well as the support by our admin at our school. That has been truly amazing. So thank you.
So Paola, what this idea of technology, while that's a support, that's also where we need support. I've seen in the first 3 weeks. We keep bumping our heads into technology issues. How can teachers support in the technology piece, and how can parents support other than just providing technology?
Right. I also think that if we provided, for example, I did videos on troubleshooting certain parts of a technology piece. So if a teacher does a video teaching kids how to solve a problem using technology, that is one way of helping out and making it easy for students to follow and to open a new program, to use a different app or any of the programs that we have in our school.
Nadine, could you maybe talk a little bit about how that looks in kindergarten? Because jumping from grade 5, which is our upper elementary grade level, down to our lowest, what kinds of supports, including support with technology, are you finding your children need?
I kind of want to talk a little bit about the support staff at school, because I think kindergarten has been working very close with our counselors and our guidance department, who had a workload of children they were working with before this all happened, and that support has continued. And I think that that's wonderful that CIS has been able to offer that kind of support for families who, we may not be able to differentiate as much as we used to be. So that support is in place for families who need that. And also the teachers being able to communicate because of the flexibility of time. I feel like I've had a lot more communication with the counseling department and that where I would have had at school, being there physically. So I really feel like CIS is in a good place for that, to support families and to support students with what they need, especially for the little ones, because for the first few weeks, it really was just that emotional piece rather than the educational piece. Mm-hmm. They needed to know that their grown-ups were still there and they were still listening and that they were available. So yeah, that's been actually done quite well, I think.
I bet you're awesome. In and out of these emotional states too. It just feels like each week has been emotionally a little bit different.
Yeah, for sure.
Lori and Andrea, for sure.
But it is really interesting to see the effect of the kind of stable grown-up presence that Nadine's talking about on the children. And they realize, whatever the educational product that we're putting out, they realize that we're still showing up every day. Yeah. And all of us, not just the teachers, but everyone else around them too, is still here every day. I think that's really important.
Yeah. Yep.
Philippa, have you found the same with your little kinders or with your, with your grade ones? Are they doing okay? Have they needed different kinds of support?
Yeah, I think so. I think, as Nadine said, you know, I think to see us every day and to have, to know that we are there and doing, you know, fun things for them or trying and thinking about them. I just had a couple of birthdays this week, so I've done some silly videos for them and things like that. Had the other students have done birthday cards on the blog site, which I've really enjoyed. And just, I think that, you know, the principle of good intent is really important right now. You know, just good intent that from parents that we are doing our best and really trying hard to you know, deliver what we feel will be like, you know, it needs to be on level, it needs to be independent as much as possible, it needs to be, you know, doable work, but also, you know, still learning something, you know, all of that stuff, that we're really trying hard to find that balance too. And then good intent from us that, you know, if we don't hear from a child for a couple of days, or if something might be going on in the family, and just checking in and not being, you know, and I don't think any of us are, but not being worried about receiving work necessarily, but just checking in and making sure everyone is doing okay. And I think also finding that balance between some parents actually liking the work to come because they like the stability of it. I spoke to, you know, a parent yesterday who said, you just love having it helps us have a routine in our family, it helps everyone keep, you know, sane, because we're all sort of, we have jobs to do, and then to balance that with other families who are just finding it overwhelming at this time, which is of course understandable. So, you know, just all of those things, I think that good intent and just empathy for what everyone's going through is really important. So that kind of support, and I think also mental health, we just need to also be thinking about that, you know, with the mindfulness and taking brain breaks and those kind of things.
Yeah, I think you're right. Everybody needs a different kind of support, and you can't anticipate what that support might be. It just depends on the day and the situation, what a particular family is going through. Luke, how about your middlies? How are the grade 3s doing? What kinds of support have you had to provide for them?
Really, it's just being available. We're able to communicate a lot through our Google Classroom about specific activities and assignments. You know, honestly, the parents have been doing an amazing job of being that first line of defense in my class, where if they have a question that's immediate and about content, they're usually able to ask their parent, usually sitting next to them while they're working or in the same room. I think also just the more time they spend on these platforms like Google Classroom, the more comfortable they're going to be in presenting their information that way. So yeah, really that and just patience, because it takes teachers a while to get to every single question. That's why that first line of defense with the parents there is so helpful for us right now.
It's combined support. It's working together with the other adults in the child's life to make everything work. Yeah. How about you, Brad? Anything to add?
Oh, hold on, Brad. I got you. Wait, there you go.
I'm all over the map on this one. First, I love what was brought up about the learning support staff and how they show up at my meetings, and I love that. Both Andrea and Brandy will pop in. They know I'm having meetings at 9 and 1, and if they're available, they sit in and they contribute. And so they're there for the kids and have their own time set aside to work with small groups or with individuals as they see fit. So that's there. I think that as far as things that I feel like parents could help out with, I think the kids that see the Brandys and see the Andreas are the ones that are getting supported. And on the other end of the spectrum, you've got the kids that have always been very independent about work. For me, it's that little group in the middle, the kids that don't need extra support on the top and aren't quite at the independent level of their friends at the other end, that are the ones that I feel like I need the most help with from parents. And if I were to say what do they need, it's a sense of urgency, I think, is the words that I would use. I'll get to it, I'll get to it when I get to it. And they're not understanding. And I tell them this all the time, that as a teacher, the only way I can check in with you really is to see what you're doing. And if you're not doing anything, I can't tell how you're doing. And if I can't tell how you're doing, that's when I start to worry. So as parents, I think the way that they can help is with helping the kids know how to manage time better. Now that there's all this independence, there's always that attitude, well, I'll get to that later. And then the new layer of work comes that next day, and that day never comes. So the sense of urgency and helping them organize, I think, would probably be the things that I most need from parents who have, by the way, have been very supportive of everything with me. I've gotten no negatives and lots of patient waiting. So for help.
That's great. That's great. I can certainly sympathize. I have one of those middle group kids. And although he does show a sense of urgency, it's usually urgency about geckos and snails and not necessarily
There
about
you go.
work. So there's that balance. Thank
But
you
in
for your
school,
answers on that.
in school, we'd be able to explore that and support it and slow down. We're missing that sort of other level of engagement and personalization right now in terms of delivering digitally. Well, our time's almost up, but this last question I think is really important. So a short, brief answer will be enough, but I think it's a good question. You hear experts now talking about how this online experience is going to change education for good. There's going to be dramatic shifts in pedagogy and how we deliver our classes from now on, even when we get back to school. And all I can think as an elementary educator is, no, I want to get back to the old way, the rich, personal, social, play-based classroom contact. I'm dying for contact with everyone in the school. And so I think I disagree with some of those philosophies, but what do you see as some of the shifts, that the good things that we may take from this experience as educators? Or what do you think the things that we just need to throw out and get back to the old way? Anybody? Let's start. It's open, so let's start. Who might have something first on the top of their head?
Can I start? Paola, you start. You go ahead. You got your hand up.
Okay, thank you. I read today in Edutopia one of the phrases that caught my mind and that explains it very clearly. It said, we cannot pass up this golden opportunity to engage kids in authentic, self-directed learning. And that's what this nowadays education does to us. It's giving us that opportunity for that self-directed learning with basis on what has been founded already for our students, as well as that opportunity for them to engage in choice learning. So that opportunity for them to find something that is real to them, that they are inclined to learning, and giving them that chance to dive into research, to problem solve, to do experiments, to build models, to write about it. You know, it's that opportunity of choice that sometimes we oftentimes forget because we're so busy with our day-to-day curriculum that we need to meet. And so I think there's that opportunity too that we have to take into account.
Nadine.
I just wanted to say that I think when we get back to school, that I think it will really increase collaboration. I think that in order for us to ensure that the children haven't lost those important pieces in the grade that they were in currently, will encourage teachers to work above and below so that we can make sure that any of those gaps are full. And as Martin always says, you know, collaboration is where teachers grow the most. So hopefully that will be a positive, teachers working together and making sure that, you know, maybe, you know, I'm a kindergarten teacher, I may need to find out what the pre-K4 curriculum was, or I may need to find out where they're going and where they're coming from. Even though we do that already, but perhaps at a deeper level, and collaborate with our coworkers who are teaching above and below us.
Absolutely. Brad. Oh, sorry. You had yourself unmuted already. Good.
Okay, I'm back. I think that flipped classroom is exhausting to do all the time, but it has opened my mind to the idea that this is something that can be used in certain areas at certain times to the benefit of the kid. So to get some of the content learning out in front, to front end load some of the lessons so that you can concentrate on what am I going to do with that learning. So you might give them kind of the information that you're going to teach through a brain pop video the night before, or through some activity that they do at home the night before, and then you can do and build upon that learning in the classroom. So I don't see it as totally negative, as I see it as something to build upon.
Philippa, hang on a sec. There you go.
So I was thinking initially when I thought about this question, I was thinking sort of practically in terms of like the technology piece, you know, with the students becoming so much more independent. And I was thinking, you know, we've been talking for a while about trying to reduce our paper going home for homework activities like math links and things like that. So could we do those online? Would, you know, would that be, and really that sort of held us back was that technology piece for that. So maybe that would continue, but then I thought more about, I think like Nadine said, the collaboration for sure. Maybe it will allow us to let go of curriculum a little bit so that we can do more independent-led learning, which you know, I think would be amazing. But I think from my point of view, and obviously this is something I feel strongly about, things like mindfulness, mental health, problem-solving skills, adaptability, resilience, those are the things that perhaps we need to focus more on. And we do try and do the, you know, teach the whole child, and we look at social emotional learning, but I'm wondering whether that needs to be higher up our list of priorities, because this year alone we've had dump fires, earthquakes, and, you know, coronavirus. We had an earthquake last week. I don't know if you guys know that. I was working at home on my bed and my bed shook. I was like, you're kidding me. So, you know, we just need, I think, to help kids and families have some way of dealing with those situations when they happen, and have some kind of healthy mental health plan that is in place already, so that we're not scrabbling to try and help them with that, you know, when things go wrong.
Almost like a wake-up call, right? Knowing that there are some fundamental skills, base skills that students need in terms of autonomy, social emotional wellness, that we do need to make time for that in the school, so that when, or not if, but probably when something happens and we're needing to deal with that outside of school, that we can handle that. And I mean, when is, whether it's during our lifetime again, or when they graduate and they go to university, that's one of the core things we're preparing students for, isn't it? So, and that starts all the way down with us in elementary school. I guess Luke is left, and then we're almost through here.
Yeah, I think everybody brought up the most important points as far as I'm thinking. I think that sometimes we get a little too wrapped up in the curriculum and time limits, and I got to get this or that done, where I think the most eye-opening thing for me was the loss of this whole social aspect, and the fact that maybe I wasn't putting enough into those purposeful social interactions that we're having at school, and how important those are, and how much it allows the kids to talk and get things out of their head and off their chest and to feel better. So agree with pretty much everything that's said, but a lot of what Philippa is saying with how they're developing socially and emotionally, I think it's going to be a bigger focus from here on.
Really good insight. Leanne, any last words? What a great panel of teachers. And
what a great panel of teachers. Great thoughts and things to think about as I lie awake in bed tonight, thinking about all this.
There's always more questions when you wake up than when you went to bed, that's for sure.
Yeah. One of the things that struck me as everyone was talking is just this reinforcement of how important a role the school as an institution plays in the community. I mean, I think we've all struggled without having our building to go to, you know, without having our community to touch base with every day. We have felt that as teachers, our students have certainly felt it, and I imagine our parents are also feeling that. And so it makes me really proud to be part of a school that is so integral to the life of the community, that it's felt so much when we're not running in our normal ways, but also that we can replicate any part of that online is pretty amazing. And for me to have seen the connections that various teachers have made, all the teachers have made with their classes, and all the different ways that they're working to meet the needs of the children and the families at this time, has been really heartwarming, and it makes me really proud to be part of the school.
Yeah, and doing that while we have our own personal lives to worry about on top of is very, I call it heroic in some way, not as much as maybe the medical staff right now, but they're in another way, right? And just serving children of the world. I think teachers around the world are doing that well. Well, thank you very much for participating. It was lovely having you, and thanks for being a part of documenting our journey through however long it's going to be that we're online teaching and learning. Take care, and my best wishes. Stay safe, everybody. Appreciate it. Thank you. Bye.